Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live. We have a lot of techniques and sequencing to add to this card that we're going to be attempting here. It's going to be a half page, or rather a 8.5 by 4.25 reflection card here using that really cool holographic blue kind of light pillory cardstock, okay, and that's going to be over the silver down here. Should make for a pretty dramatic type of setting, but we'll have to do some things to this surface right here in order for the objects to stand out on there. It's a very loud surface and super light reflective and dynamic, but in order to use imagery on there, you really have to do something in the background. So we're going to be using inks that will dry on these surfaces and adhere in some cases, but for the most part, what I'll be applying on to these surfaces will need to be spray sealed, which is two different colors, which are two different colors of Brilliance pigment ink, which are a water-based pigment ink, and they're designed to dry on non-porous types of surfaces or less porous types of surfaces, okay? All right, so let's just get into it here. We have a lot of things to cover here. I'm going to be stamping out, the scenario is a scene that I've done many times before, but I don't think in this combination here, but it's the baby sea turtles going out to sea. I thought it would make for an interesting lower section area. And what I'm going to do on this piece is I'm going to be doing these moon phases up here, okay? 5 different moons up here. Full moon, gibbous moon, and crescent moons. And we'll be doing those in glow-in-the-dark vinyl printable sticker paper. All right, I thought that looked really good on one of the previous reflection cards, and I have these moon phases that are on one of the symmetry sheets, so I thought I would go with the larger full moon kind of at the focal, or whatever, the central point up here in the sky, and then we'll do the phases leading into that and out of that. And I'll use the smaller versions of those right up here, so these ones will be kind of turned opposite on the other side. Hello, Megan, how are you? All right, so I'm going to have to try to get this sequencing down. This is not planned out beyond me thinking about this, like, I don't know, like 10 minutes ago. Then I was looking all over for my glow-in-the-dark vinyl sticker paper, and I couldn't find the, like, I don't know, whatever, my full package of it. But I did find a sheet, so, I don't know, it's driving me nuts. I need to organize my papers here. All right, so large Seaside Cove here. This is a pretty large piece of long piece of a piece of silver reflective cardstock, nice and mirrored. Okay, so if you want to go for this reflection type of thing, I would really recommend that. You can do kind of what I call a horizon card, where things aren't reflecting down below, but it just represents the kind of flatter, whatever, earthly surface. But if you want things reflected, get the mirrored type, and you can find that pretty cheap per sheet out there, to very expensive, $1.50 a sheet or something like that. But there are packs out there of 50 or 60 sheets for about, I don't know, there's probably some Black Friday sales going on. But even when they're not on sale, they're like that, it's, I don't know, it's like $17 a pack. You might find it cheaper, but you can find them per sheet at a really reasonable rate. Some people even went to places like, you know, the Dollar Tree and bought, you know, in the party section, some mirrored types of, it wouldn't really be cardstock. I think it was like, I don't know, decorative, construction papers that were very mirrored, and that worked really great too. Okay, so let's get this. I re-inked my StazOn here, and when sometimes what I like to do is instead of taking stamp to paper, I take paper to stamp when it's a really large like this. And I'm just going to roughly lay down like this, okay? And then what I do is I take a roller and go from the inside out like that, just so that it doesn't kind of alter on me too much. If I'm just going from one end to the other, sometimes the rubber's a little bit flexible, and then you get a little bit of a, I don't know, whatever it is, compression and variation by the time you get to the other end. All right, so this is going to be on a mirrored cardstock too. So, and this is a really long piece right here, and it's done in StazOn. So it doesn't print out great. It kind of doesn't matter because you can kind of render in some additional shadow forms and highlights after that anyway. If it's not a perfect impression, if it moved a little bit on you, again, it's not stamped out on a white piece of paper where things are going to be really obvious. But see, that gave me a really good impression there. And I'm glad what I did beforehand was to re-ink, okay, on such a large stamp. But with really large stamps, you know, like that. It doesn't have to be a Seaside Cove, you know, it's which is one of the largest stamps in art stamping history, you know. If you're having troubles with your hands or anything like that, even with, you know, 3 by 4 inch types of stamps, if you just put the card to that and take a brayer and just lightly roll over it, you know, it's a good solution. Or, you know, a lot of you have stamp positioners and things like that too. All right, so that is done right there. That's probably dry. Hello, Candy. I wish I had blues in my package. Yeah, the blue really worked out great. This blue right here was it was in that other pack previously. The only packs that I saw that had this kind of light pillory type. It was a pack of multi-toned papers. One of them was the holographic like that, but then they'd have like blue metallic in there and like a darker blue, I think, and then one of them was a lighter blue metallic. Or not even, yeah, it was metallic. It was more like an iridescent type, like a Star Dream. So I didn't have very many of these, but now they have just this pattern of holographic and a multi-tone colored pack. I think it's a 40 packs set, and I think there's 4 sheets of 10 different colors or something like that. So luckily, you know, but this dark blue one really works really well for scenes in terms of a night sky, or you have it down in water as well. Okay, so anyways, this is what this is going to look like right here, but we'll need to block off a lot of the things. I like how this goes like this, you know, when someone's opening the cards and you have this kind of lighting being reflected down here in the water going across the waves like that. But you can hardly see this image down here. That's why we'll have to use a lot of the white pigment ink to define a lot of the you know, the specific ocean waves and, you know, like this area down here where our sea turtles will go. All right. Okay, so I was thinking about this before I do certain things. I need to get my sequencing down right here. I mean, there's not too much things. I mean, you can put some of these things out of order, but I'm going to be adding in some white pigment ink, like some clouds down here. And that is going to be done in the Brilliance ink. And if I don't spray seal anything down here, then those other types of applications of this ink are going to come off if I just even touch it down here. So in this moon phase thing that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to have this crescent gibbous, full gibbous crescent configuration up here in the sky with these moons here. But I thought instead of just doing them on like a straight line across here like that, I thought I would do them in an arc. I thought that would be more, I don't know, whatever. It would it'd be a little bit more graceful, I think, in that type of scenario, layout, whatever. So I'm going to take, and I found my color wheel right here is like a really good arc for this, I think. I don't know, maybe it would be a little bit less like that, but I don't know. I have a compass, but I didn't want to bust that out for this purpose. I thought, I'm going to already have like too many, like a bunch of things to do on this one, so let's make this one a little bit, this step right here a little bit easier, or faster. Okay, so let's see, I want that moon to be roughly about right here, I think. Okay. And I'm going to put it right in the middle of this line that I'm going to be adding in. So let me get a measurement right here. Okay, so I'm putting a little nick right there, and let's see. Here's my ruler for right now. All right, so that's going to be my baseline right there for this. And we'll go, let's see, here we go, right there. Where'd it go? There and there. Like a frisbee or something like that would be good. All right, let me see. Let me get this flowing here. These acrylic paint pens can write on anything, like from papers to even glass. So, but you have to kind of get them flowing on there, and then you'll get a really good clean line like this. All right, so that will be our moon phase. I don't know, what would it be? Like an orbit, you know, trajectory or something like that. If anyone's into astronomy, this would all be incorrect, but it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is if it looks cool at the end. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so some clouds will be going in here. All right. And then I'm going to spray spatter some stars up here. Should I spray those right now, or should I do that after the clouds go in? I think let's do the clouds right now. Let's do the clouds right now, and then as I'm doing some other things, it'll give this brilliance ink a little bit of time to dry here. All right, let's see. All right, so 100% cotton ball. Did I say hello to Patty? Hello, Patty. I hope everyone had a pleasant Thanksgiving if you're here in the States. I think Thanksgiving Canada was, when was that? Was that like a month ago or so? I think time's like going by so fast. All right, so just thin applications of this white pigment ink like that. I don't try to develop these clouds really fast. I do it just a little bit at a time, kind of like a flat layer of pigment ink. And then you start doing this thing, you optically kind of push and pull a little bit more by building up additional tone in some areas, and that gets it whiter, and then it looks like it's setting out from the paper a little bit more, okay? But develop it just kind of in layers. I think it's like so much easier that way, okay? Let's see, let's do the torn paper towel technique here too. Hello, Caroline, how are you? And let's make it a little bit more kind of varied. This. Don't worry about getting it like it's like super smooth either. You can, if you ever add some of this ink down and it's like really blobby looking or something like that, you can remove ink off of the surface even after it dries, okay? Just as long as you do any alterations before you spray seal it. And I would use, I would really recommend a Krylon spray fixative to set these inks. It's my favorite to use by far these days for this purpose. I find that it doesn't alter the holographic cardstocks by very much, even though I don't know, I thought it would have in theory because it's a matte spray as opposed to a glossy, and the surface is glossy, so you would think it would my thought was that it would matte it out, which it does a little bit, but not as much as the glossy spray, believe it or not. And my theory is just that the spray fixatives are just thinner, so it doesn't apply so much acrylic as does the thicker sprays, the glossy ones, the UV types of, clear gloss. Krylon Crystal Clear is another one. Krylon Triple Thick, of course, that one's going to be super thick. But I do love those for things like glossy cardstock applications or things like stamp board. Those are really fantastic to give it a little bit of a thicker coat. But if you want kind of minimal kind of alteration and influence on your surface, the thinner spray fixatives are a really good way to go, and they really dry really fast. Okay, so we have that line like that over the top. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll make some of these areas of the cloud a little bit more opaque. It has a soft edge to it, I'm using a paper towel like that, but then I'll make it softer by just going over and dabbing over that edge on the cloud too with some additional ink. And again, it's a real dry brush application. Okay, like that. So it looks a little bit more kind of airy and illuminated and soft that way. And it's a little bit more fluid when you're just kind of freehanding things in there as well. Hello, Linda. Hey, when was that Canadian Thanksgiving, Linda? Was that 2 weeks ago, or was that just last week? I couldn't remember. We were just talking about it. I remember because you got me really hungry when when you were describing that your spread, your dinner spread. Which sounded really good. All right, see how that's kind of building out like that? Now, when you build out these clouds like this on, I would say most types of papers, it doesn't have to be a foil, that white pigment ink dries it much more kind of see-through than what it looks like while it's wet. Okay, so what you do, you can allow it to dry to see what you're getting. But if you think you applied too much, especially when you're doing this for the first time or first times, kind of allow it to sit a little bit and see what it looks like when it's dry. I mean, it doesn't have to dry completely, but you get a better idea, like even in 10 minutes from now, of how opaque it's going to be. It's not going to be opaque, but on the sliding scale of transparency and opacity is, translucency. So right now it looks like it's kind of, whatever, right of center, but it probably won't be when it dries. Okay. I know it loses, I don't know, I'm just off the top of my head, the first layer or so, like that might lose, I don't know, 15% of its opacity and look more like this when it dries, okay? But then what you do is you just keep, you know, the more you build up on that, the more opaque it becomes. It can be beneficial to this property of the inks like that sometimes, because it merges a little bit with the background a little bit more as you do this. So if you have a kind of a heavy-handed, sloppy application, which mine looks like a lot of times, it just kind of harmonizes with the paper a little bit more the drier it gets, and then I can make my alterations. Sometimes I add too much ink, but most of the times with this, something like this, when it dries, it's like, oh, it could use a little bit more. So it's more of like an addition type of, whatever, editing, refining process. All right, so I think that's pretty good. I'm going to put this down here like that. Okay, now see, if I just added this in black over here, all these darker kind of patterns in here, kind of the negative space in between these lights like that. And of course, it's going to be moving depending on the light that's hitting it. That's why I'm putting this in the background. If this is like a golden toned holographic or something like that, that's really light, and I'm stamping this in black, you'll still get these hard bands, but this is so much darker to begin with, so I'm using the blocking out of the background a little bit in some areas. Okay, mainly where my stamps, my imagery is going to go, my main imagery. Okay, so I want to have like a Milky Way of stars in here too, but I'm wondering if I want to put a little bit of cloud textures up here. Sometimes I do that in the catty corner from one another. Was that October 13th? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I couldn't remember. I was thinking it could have been a month ago. But when you came on just now, I started thinking about that, your food. And it made it more present to me. All right, so Linda, on this one, I'm going to do the moon phases in here, and they're going to be in the glow-in-the-dark sticker paper here. Now that I think about that, I didn't leave very much room there for that sticker paper right in here, because I wanted that moon. I guess it can go over the clouds. I might have to go out and spray seal this a little bit during this live stream. All right, so here, I'm just freehanding this cloud up here in the corner. It's supposed to be kind of like the bottom side of a cloud or something like that. And maybe that's a little bit too soft everywhere. Let's give it a little bit of a definition right here. If you go like that, with just some of it free, it can give you a little bit of textural variation. And then if it looks variation weird, then, just, I don't know, whatever, change it up, add more freehand or add more masking. Let's give a little bit of depth here too. I think I need to do this down below here now that I think about it. So see that right there? It kind of layers that cloud in the background a little bit more, like that. Let's see, let me blend that out a little bit like that. I like that definition in there. Let's add this down here somewhere. Yeah, something like that. I was kind of adding it with a little bit of extra tapping and pressure or layering in one area, but I think that looks really good. This gets a little bit soft here too. Let's add a little bit more form in there too. So I'll just kind of bring it like this, and I'll have it kind of taper off. You don't have to do this whole line right here, you know, when you're doing it with just these paper towels like this. All right, then just kind of blend it out a little bit. Again, that one should darken up a little bit. The more you start adding in here, though, the more kind of opacity you'll retain, because it's building up a lot of ink on there and layering. You can see that right there. I touched that right there, and that my ink came right off. So I need to be really careful about where I touch this paper until you spray seal it. All right. So that should be good for right up there. Okay. Now this will dry on this type of cardstock. Sometimes it doesn't dry very fast though, and it dries slower than I anticipated at times, because sometimes I've really added in a lot of layering in here. And sometimes, I don't know, sometimes it can dry overnight, sometimes it takes like a couple days, but what you do is you spray seal it a little bit with a light layer, hit it again, and then let it sit for a little bit longer, sometimes if it still seems kind of wet. And then build up your sealant on here. I'm not talking about like days or anything like that. It takes like a couple seconds for it to dry, 10 seconds or something like that. Then hit it again, and then when you think that you've sealed off everything pretty good, but you might hit it a little bit because that acrylic is still really tacky. I mean, really light. And if you touch it and it feels a little bit tacky there, if you've kind of put down a pretty decent amount of layering on there, then, I don't know, in something like this, what I would do is I would cover it up like this, and then I would spray heavier over that cloud area. You don't want to hit it like too hard and thick with that sealant where it's taken a little bit, like a few seconds for it to dry on there, because in that time it could put, you know, some of that ink back into solution or something like that. It shouldn't with this water-based ink with the acrylic sealant, but that's what I do. I build it in layers, and then I give it a heavier coating. So even if the ink is still a little bit moist underneath there, the sealant itself over the top of it will be dry and hard, and then it'll just dry over time. Okay. Now that's not going to happen if it's something like a, you know, like a VersaFine Clair or something like that, like a white oil-based ink. It might just be wet on here forever. Okay. So you want to go with the brilliance on this type of surface, just because it, you know, again, it will dry, albeit slow at times, okay, in some scenarios. Okay, so let's see here. Stampin' Up! White pigment ink is not the same as Brilliance, way thicker. Well, the Stampin' Up! White pigment ink is going to be oil-based, right, Linda? Unless they're claiming it's like a fast-drying one on like glossy cardstock or something like that. I don't know, Linda. We were all ready to come over to your place that day. Okay, so white pigment ink. Now see, I've kind of rolled this into a much kind of narrower, whatever, applicator right here, so that I can add this pigment ink right in here on those waves. So there's darker areas on this image right in here, and then here's the waves, kind of these cresting foamy waves right here. That's where I'm going to be applying a lot of the white pigment ink. I don't know, I might add a little bit in this kind of open area, I'm not sure. And this area from here down, I'm going to have this little bit of a glow right down in this area, because if I don't, we won't be able to see the sea turtles at all, you know, over this paper. Even those silvers, you know, could be light and reflective like that. You want it to be, you know, your imagery to be able to be visible in just regular lighting. So that's what we'll bring it out. Okay, now this is the part where I don't know, I just did a piece like this recently where we added in this white pigment ink. And as long as I add this in kind of a drier application, I haven't even re-inked this. in order to start using it in here. I've been blabbing too, so it's kind of drying on my cotton ball. As long as I add it kind of in this dry and thin application, it goes on pretty, nicely and whatever, harmoniously, as opposed to kind of like looking like blobs. Now it kind of looks weird there because it's the only application of it on that surface right there. But, the more you add, the more it'll kind of make sense from a lighting standpoint. I can kind of see my waves a little bit easier doing it from underneath like this, or flipping this upside down. So just kind of, flip your cards around for whatever type of application you're doing, where it's the most ideal kind of angle for you to make that particular mark. I say that because I mention this all the time, but a lot of people, they don't want to work on their piece any other way but upright like this, okay? But getting at some areas sometimes, like, see right over here, I can't really see that edge, that top edge is easy when I'm doing it like this because my hand's in the way, but I can see it a little bit easier this way. That top edge right there, because it's underneath there, and I'm kind of going for this top edge right here as opposed to the bottom part of that whatever, the cresting wave. Okay, sometimes when you're doing things like this too, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this old book. I think it probably came out in the 70s or something like that, but it's called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by this author Betty Edwards. And she used to teach drawing to people, not to art majors or something like that, but just everyone. And what they do is she figured she was accessing a different hemisphere of the brain, when you flip things upside down, and they were copying like portraits or something like that. And when they flipped things upside down, they weren't thinking about things like, specifically when it came to portraiture, they weren't thinking about, okay, this is an eyeball and this is a nose or a cheek or something like that. But they were seeing things more as kind of like abstract forms, and it was easier for people to draw that form, thinking about it just like as a form or a geometric shape than like a nose, because then sometimes they'd be accessing, things that where they thought, a nose should look like, or, going off of previous drawings or something like that. And they would be more objective in a different configuration. So I always thought that was kind of interesting. So when I'm doing this type of thing, I'm just kind of looking at, sometimes I've thought or wondered if I'm kind of thinking more in terms of like balance when it comes to an overall scene, lighting and things like that, as opposed to saying, okay, I'm doing a rock, or something like that. So I always thought that was kind of fascinating, and I heard about that concept in high school, and you saw kind of the results in those books. It's like a person's first drawing of themselves, okay? And then they would show kind of the students drawing self-portrait of themselves, like at the semester's end, okay? And it was like vastly improved. But that, I thought, okay, when I got to Long Beach State, she happened to be a teacher there, I had no idea. But it was more of like a general ed class. I wanted to, but I just didn't have the time because, I had to take stuff to get, through my major and general ed and everything like that. But the thing that she would do is Yeah, it's kind of cheating. But but I thought the whole concept was really cool and pretty interesting and applicable. But that first drawing, she would have people kind of draw themselves from memory of what they thought they looked like. So they would just do a portrait, not even looking at the mirror. And they would do that first drawing like that. And then the drawing of themselves after, a semester of whatever instruction, I think they looked at a mirror or something themselves, or maybe they took a photo of themselves or something like that. And then they flipped it upside down and they were drawing from the photo. And of course that's going to look a lot better than, just doing something out of, from memory or whatever. What you thought you looked like. So I always thought that was kind of weird. One of my old roommates or one of my old suite mates in the dorms took the class. So that's how I knew, that part of it. All right, so anyways, I'm doing this little passageway of light coming down like this, okay? That looks really weird as is, but we'll add in some additional things in there, okay? But you can see the definition of those waves is a lot stronger now with this being reflected in here, okay? And you can see these clouds that they're reflecting in that down below like that, okay? You get that kind of lighting going across the ocean's, the water's surface like that, which is pretty fun. All right, so let's see here. Let's get in a little bit more of a kind of a refined edition of some of that pigment ink in here. Oh, you read the book. Yeah, 1980. Yeah, I remember. I was aware of that book in high school when I was going to high school in the 80s. And it always fascinated me because I'd always look in the art section, when I was a student. And I saw that book. It was in all the bookstores. But yeah, it was interesting. When I got to Long Beach State, the author is right there. That's why I was always kind of bummed. I didn't take it though because it wasn't applicable to the requirements for my major. So, or I think you could use it for your general ed class in a certain category if you weren't a art major. So, there were certain types of art classes for non-art majors, general ed classes. All right, see that right there? We're kind of building that up, and you can see that, just like I do with my clouds, I kind of have this just kind of real light application of the pigment ink like that. But now see, I'm kind of adding a little bit more right at the top of that crest so that as you move down like this, it's just more of this kind of light application. So it looks like more like, that wave or that area is being top lit, okay? So you can see this right here. I'll add this like that right at the top. Okay. And then it's darker as you move down that little area like that. So you get variation in there. Now, one of the things I need to kind of be aware of, just from experience, when I'm looking at this thing, and I mention this to everyone, when I'm doing these types of things, but you have to kind of look and see how things are looking, because when you're applying things, we're kind of focused in like a little, I don't know, 50-cent piece or like a quarter-sized area, and we're applying that there. You know what I mean? We have this kind of tunnel vision, so you have to kind of look at it as a whole to see how what you're doing is affecting the overall, okay? So whenever I say that, I'm kind of reminding myself of all that too. Look at SU Whisper White pigment ink is oil-based. Yeah. Yeah, every type of pigment ink out there that I know of or have seen is oil-based, except for the Brilliance ink. They designed that ink. They designed that ink because there were a lot of different pigment inks at the time. I don't know if there were a lot. There were Color Box, and I think, I don't know, maybe there's only 2 or 3 others at the time. But none of them would draw in glossy cardstocks. So Stampin' Up came, Sukaneko came up with that, with the Brilliance ink. Same thing with like the StazOn, you know. They wanted things that would dry on less than porous, you know, really porous surfaces. So everyone was using glossy cardstock at the time, in addition to matte, but just about everyone that stamped at one point in time used glossy cardstock in their repertoire. So they wanted that type of ink that would dry on there for that purpose. Now, I don't know how they were coloring and everything like that, what the other techniques were being done with that Brilliance on glossy, but that was the I don't know, whatever the motivation behind that ink. All right, this is looking better with this little kind of detail work on here, I think. Like that, okay. Let's see. Sometimes I stop being able to see really well because I have all this light reflecting up in my eyes. So, at certain angles. It's like I got this stamp glare going on here. All right, so we have that going on here. Now let's add in kind of some illumination down here so that we'll be able to see those sea turtles too. I'm not sure what I'll add up here. I don't know if I want to make this murkier because I have all those white clouds kind of already in this area reflecting from up above, so I might not want to do too much you know, with additional lighting in here. We already have the lighting being reflected, so I'm not sure. Brushed silver, Patty, I use those, but I don't use them for, you know, reflection cards, of course, but I use them for, you know, the top portions or something like that. Hello, Sharita. But yeah, there's a bunch of them in the Metallics playlist. I don't know how many cards are in that Metallics playlist. I'm guessing there's probably a few hundred in there. And it would be everything from the metallic cardstocks, such as the iridescent ones, like the Star Dream ones. It started off with the Star Dream ones, because I had so much of that type of paper. Star Dream, I think there's another one called Pearl X, I think. That's the one that I was getting from Kelly Paper all the time. There's the holographic printable vinyl sticker papers in there, in addition to, you know, like I said, the mirrored ones. So those ones are pretty fun to use. I mean, it's you know, they're certainly more reflective than, you know, white pieces of paper or something like that. So I like it for that purpose. And the shimmer, but I don't use the I haven't been doing the iridescence as much, like Star Dreams, because I don't know, they went up in price. Like, for me, they probably tripled in price, because I would typically get those on sale at Kelly Paper. Kelly Paper's this local kind of wholesale paper store, but they're open to the public as well. I'm able to buy it from them. It's not wholesale, but it's what they call trade. prices because I have a business license. But what I would do is Kelly Paper, they have a, like a retail showroom. And if a piece, any type of products were on their shelf for 12 months or more, they don't want to have like a longer shelf life for paper, colored papers, because they're, they could, fade out or something like that. But, they just wanted to keep things fresh. So they would blow out that type of paper, and paper was like half as much, whatever, like 3 years ago than it is now. But then they would have a blowout sale of like, I don't know what it was. It was like 75% off, I think, on their discount area. And that was a lot of the iridescent papers, stuff that they have more for like, just individuals. Because most of their business was selling to printers. And I would get it for like super cheap. I don't know, like a couple dollars for like a 25 pack. But I went in there. I haven't been in there in a while, but it's like that discount table, the clearance tables. I think the clearance prices were more than the full price prices pre kind of the price increases. Yeah, so it was like, oh my God, I was shocked. Thus the current metallics that I'm using. Occasionally I'll do some papers that are a little bit pricier, but for the most part, I don't work on cardstocks that are going to be like, like, I don't know, like 50 cents or like $1 a sheet or something like that. All right, I am going in and I'm adding in some of these other little kind of highlights like that. This got pretty light down here, so I need to balance this off a little bit with some additional tone up top. Okay. It's not going on like super smooth or anything like that, but again, I think it looks just fine, kind of as is. It's a little bit clunky. It sure looks stormy, huh? All right, let's see what it looks like with, I need to be careful about where I'm touching again. Look at that. It takes on a different spirit with that reflection in there, doesn't it? Okay, now you see this right down here. You see some of that. It doesn't look like there's any white on here at all, but when you go like that, it's reasonably opaque, and I'll be able to see those turtles right down in this area. Okay, now that's not going to be like that light once I stamp my image right over the front of it, and it's going to be in black too, so I need to keep that in mind as well. All right, let's see. Let's do trying to think of what I want to stamp next in terms of the sequencing. Let's go with the sea turtles down here, or no, let's do this right here. I'm going to let this set up a little bit and kind of dry a little bit. And let's get to those moons. Those moons, I wish I had done those before coming on live here, because this is going to be a little bit of tedium here for you guys to watch. Go and get a snack or something like that, and come back in 15. Okay, but these are the 3 different moon phases. I'm going to have the full moon at the central, whatever, apex of this arc right here, like right there. And then these other phases are going to go down here, okay? So glow-in-the-dark vinyl printable sticker paper here. So again, we'll use the Brilliance ink for that. Let's see. Yeah, let's use this one. I'm going to leave a little bit of space in between these moons because I want to tone them a little bit. When I stamped out a bunch of these on my glow-in-the-dark sticker paper before, I had them like super close to one another. Just because when I bought that sticker paper before, it was kind of pricey. This was about 2 years ago, but I think there's like 2 or 3 other sellers of it now. I don't know, I get it on Amazon. And the price had dropped by quite a bit. Okay, so I need 2 different gibbous moons. And I need 2 crescent. I'm going with the smaller versions. These also come in a larger version. But I'm just doing it for the end of the area that we have to work with in that sky area on that 4 1/4 by 8.5 piece. All right, this is the crescents right here. And this sticker paper is printable again, so, and it's designed for your water-based media on here. So those are, I don't want to touch it right now just in case, but it's probably dry already. All right, so these are smaller moons right here. I'm going to see if I can get this right here with my latest little video. When was it, yesterday or something like that. What I like to do is, I found that kind of adding a little bit of additional tone on these makes them look a little bit more, kind of refined in terms of the shading. I bet maybe I shouldn't do anything to the crescent because there's hardly any, there's just a sliver of that moon kind of showing right there. So, but on these ones right here, the 3 other ones, I think I'll add a little bit of grayscale shading in there. Okay, right now it's just black and white, but I can use I can add variations of gray in there, and we'll kind of illuminate them as well with a little bit of white pigment ink. It just makes them look a little bit more, you know, they have more volume that way. Okay, like that. And the glow-in-the-dark will show through these applications of, you know, this kind of grayscale black I'm putting on here. But I think moonlight looks good, you know, having a kind of a softer glow to it anyway. So that's what this kind of gives us a little bit more of than not having it on there. I never did this before in the past, but I did it fairly recently, and I thought, oh, I think that looks kind of good. So it's just like one of those little refinement things that you know, you don't have to do, but if you have a little bit of time, and if you're kind of mass producing a bunch of these moons, I would do a bunch of them at the same time. And then you can just cut them out whenever you want them, or pre-cut them out, whatever. You know, it's really easy to do, and it just it adds that little extra touch in there. So right here, I kind of bottom lit that. You can see a little bit more of a grayscale variation in here, and then there's the black right back up in there. On these ones right here, I'll illuminate them from the, well, in this case, it's, you know, from the left side like this. So I'm kind of just dabbing right there. And this is a small stamp, so I won't go too much more than that. Let me see. Those ones look better than this. Here, I'll go like, I'll add a little bit more white down there. Like that. There, I got a little bit more gutsy after doing those small ones. That, and that's what that looks like. So we'll cut those out like so. All right. And then, like I said, let me see. Let me get a little bit of tone into that. This tiny sliver. Or maybe I can, maybe with the crescents, I can come a little bit into that blackness right there. Yeah, it looks okay, I guess. This one didn't stand out quite as dark. All right, now all those applications of white and black on there should be nice and dry. It's just a thin application on printable vinyl. Remember, this is a really different type of surface than, you know, the metallics or anything like that. You can even see, like, I touched right down there and that little bit came off. All right. All right, let's see here. I used to do a lot of traveling, speaking of those different types of cardstocks. I used to go to all these different stamp stores around the country. And, you know, everyone sold different types of papers. So I wasn't going out and doing a lot of paper shopping, you know, just specifically for that. But I'd be in these different stores. And sometimes I'd buy some stamps from them. But the papers were what I was always attracted to a lot. And I wasn't using them a lot, you know, because I didn't think about brilliance inks at the time and how they could dry on there. I don't know, I was like a collector of paper. And then at some point in time, must have been about 3 years ago at this point, I think I organized my papers or something like that and started consolidating because they were in a few different areas, all kind of within my room, and close by. But I started consolidating. I was thinking, oh my God, I have a lot of metallics, and it was all that kind of Stardream type. That's when I realized, oh, I must like these kind of like shiny papers for some reason. And that was the time I thought, okay, I need to start using some of these. I was mostly using them to matte my finished scenes, you know, with a little bit of an extra kind of textural, you know, kind of exciting framing to cards. And it was time to just use it for a different purpose. And that's when I pulled out that, I don't know, like it must have been at least a 20-year-old Brilliance pad that was completely dry. And that was the same thing with my StazOn pad. I had those pads, but I just wasn't using them. I'd use the Brilliance White a little bit sometimes, but it was only if I needed to build up a little bit more white ink on top of my color box white ink, you know, because the Brilliance stuck better and it built up better because it was fast drying. But that's when all those different papers opened up, the Brilliance ink opened up the possibility of utilizing all those different papers. I don't know, I've been using them like crazy since. I like a lot of reflective light coming off of my scenes, you know, it was usually using contrast, but now it's actually reflected light coming out of a scene. Or like more reflected light than like a white piece of paper, you know, which is a little bit reflective, but not very much, you know. So when you get into the metallics, you have that extra kind of property of them. So, when someone looks at a card of yours, having contrast in there, it was always kind of nice. You have a nice light moon in there or something like that, and I would define it, the lightness, with the use of shadow, which I still do on, metallics too, but now you have something that's reflecting the light so much more. So, the recipient of your cards, when you have that light shining out of something, it can be a little bit extra, kind of a dynamic, a property. Okay, so as I'm doing this, I have all these moons right here. Let me see. Let me get my bearings right here in terms of where they're going to go. Okay, so let's see. So the gibbous moons will be like this. Okay. And then, let me see. It's like this, right? Okay, that's changing that way. Like that. I think the crescents, yeah, the crescents go that way. And this one's going to have to go in front of that. Let's see, right here. All right, so that's what that's going to look like right there. It's kind of like a little, like a chart. And here's what I'm thinking of. Do I add that in now and then splatter paint some stars in the background? The stars have to go in first, otherwise I'm going to have like splashes of white over my moons in here. But when I splatter paint in here and then I put the moon over the top of it, it's not going to be like super flat on there, because these add in like little raised little bits of yeah, I mean, it's not super raised, like embossed or anything like that, but they do have a little bit of dimension. Maybe I didn't need to worry about that. I guess this paper is really aggressive. That sticker paper on the back of that vinyl is really aggressive. See that? I just barely touched that and see how that came off. So again, this will be spray sealed, okay? And these inks will be locked down when that time comes. All right, so if I was doing this outside of a live stream, I probably would have allowed this to dry completely, and then I would probably spray seal it and then do these applications, but let's just do them right now. All right. A collector of paper. Aren't we all? Does anyone have, those tablets of papers too? That, the multicolored tablets. They're typically, what were they? Like 8x8 and 12x12s. I think I have a few of those. I have like grayscale paper, where you didn't want to get like a, I don't want to get like a ream of gray or something like that, but those grayscale ones were typically those ones in those tablets. And I might have like some other tablets too, I'm not sure. Yeah, but those papers are real, they're real tactile, so they're really, whatever, enticing, I guess, to me. It's like books too, I used to get, you go to a bookstore back when, and when you're shopping for those types of things in person, you might go to a bookstore. You might get, something if you're kind of going, specifically going for that. But, you walk out with things, that you weren't anticipating. So that's one of those things that's kind of missing with online shopping, is the tactile experience, right? All right, so Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White, if you haven't seen this before. It's a very, very opaque white watercolor paint. All right, so you want to squeeze some of this out. It depends how thick, your paint is, but I don't know, I kind of like it like syrup texture. Maybe a little bit thinner. And I'm spraying from a little bit of an angle like this. Sometimes I don't know which way the spray pattern is going to go with this old toothbrush here, but you can get that little spray pattern in here, and in this case, it looks like little stars. I like to go in kind of a angle in my skies. I think sometimes I just do an overall spray pattern. Definitely if it's snow, but I like to go with a little bit more of a directional type of application. Here, I'll go a little bit closer now to get it, in that little whatever pattern right there. Okay. But there you have a lot of depth to that sky area now. And it gives you something kind of static amongst all this kind of moving light. So I think it stabilizes the that patterning on there, that it's almost a little bit too active to be used for scenes in many ways. But when you stabilize it with something like these little things like that, which are light in there, or at least they represent light, it adds in that extra little touch. One of these came out like that. I don't know. It could be a comet or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'll leave it in there. And that dries pretty fast, so you should be okay. All right, so let's see right here. Where's the center of this? Is it right? I can usually tell pretty good, but when I added in those moons before, I wasn't sure. Okay, I'm going to try to keep that line in the background, kind of in the midpoint of each one of these moons here. Oh, Candy, you volunteered at a thrift shop, huh? That's cool. So you had a lot of people like coming in there, huh? Like scrapbookers and things like that, stampers. Okay, let me see. Let me get my bearings here. I got to get this one centered really well. Sorry for working off camera here. Let me see. All right. Close enough here. And let's see. Let me lay these out right now, just so I know where they're going here. Oh, wait a minute. See, I was talking about sequencing with this right here. When I was starting this, I thought I need to get the sequencing down with what I'm going to be adding into these two different areas down, because I have this right here, right? This island that's going to go right over the top right here. So I can't have that moon like where it's going to be right in front of these trees or over these trees. So that moon will have to be kind of worked around these trees right here. I guess I can put this way over here and I would have more room, but that wouldn't look good. I can put this over here, but that wouldn't look good. All right, let's see. Let's use this block right here. I donated a lot of paper before I moved, but I still have way more than I need. So it was just, yeah. So Patty, paper can be heavy too, huh? Like super heavy. So obviously, Patty, yeah, you had a bunch of paper that you collected over the years, and you just never used it, huh? I felt sorry for back in the days of like when there was like a gazillion scrapbooking stores everywhere, and that big area of each one of those stores was devoted to papers, those 12 by 12s. And a lot of it was, it seemed like it was, this type of dynamic didn't really exist in the stamping world so much. I mean, there might have been a little bit of like, trends and things like that coming by, but it seemed like in the scrapbooking world, like paper that was like fashionable, like 1 year, like, I don't know, like 12 months later, it would be like out. You know what I mean? And I felt so bad for all those stores that had to kind of keep up with all that. But yeah, I saw a lot of that, a lot of papers that was just, when I'd go into some stores, that were just, they were always like on sale. Like those, we talked about this in the live stream before, but like Basil, that was one of those big companies at the time. I was wondering if they were still around. I can't remember. Maybe someone looked it up or something at the time. I thought they were. But man, they were rolling at one point in time. I mentioned in the live stream before, at one of the CHA shows, we were way back in the corner of one of the buildings, and it was the second building to boot. It wasn't even the first building that I think people walked into, but we were like in the back of the second building. But they threw Basil back there because they were so popular that it would get it. They knew that everyone would go out of their way to get over to that Basil booth. Lucky for us too, not Stampscapes. I was working with Ampersand Art and their stamp board product. All right, so there we have that. I did that in the Brilliance ink, okay, because I'm stamping the Brilliance over the top of kind of a wet white Brilliance, okay? Now, if I had spray sealed down that white Brilliance cloud in the background before I stamped that, I could have stamped it in StazOn if I wanted to. But I have a feeling that if I tried to do StazOn over the top of an exposed, kind of floating, still wet Brilliance ink on there, I don't think that StazOn ink would have transferred on there, okay? So I had to go kind of thick on thick. Thick and wet on, thick and wet black over thick and wet white ink. Okay. All right, so let me see. Let me get a reconfiguration or the moons on here. Okay. That. I should really do it this side. I'll measure this side. I want these moons to be roughly kind of spaced apart equally. Between the different phases, I think. Okay, let's see. I think that's close enough. This one seems a little crunched, huh? Is that the same distance right there? Let's see. I'm usually pretty good at my spacing, but I have all this kind of, it's the illusion of all that that paper in the background kind of throws me off, all this patterning back here. Somebody one time, and it's kind of true a little bit. Someone said they can't work on this type of paper because it makes them dizzy. It doesn't make me dizzy, but it's kind of disorienting a little bit when it comes to kind of lining things up occasionally. All right, let me see here. I'm going to use this right here. I just want more paper pads today. What color pads did you get, Sharita? Or did you get patterned or something like that? Black Friday sale, right? Now's a good time to get them, though. All right, forgive my head being in the way here. I think that is it right there, roughly. Okay, and let's go with this one. Okay, I'm just making a mental note that this kind of just touches the top of that tree right there. And let me see, I got to get the that illumination kind of in the right direction. Not that anyone really noticed, but I don't know, they might. All right, if anyone's just joining in here, this is a glow-in-the-dark vinyl sticker paper. So we'll have this little extra dynamic of, you flip off the lights and these moons will glow in the dark. So that's about roughly. All right. There we go, up there. I think that looks pretty cool. It's like a little kind of a, like I said, it can represent, I think it looks kind of cool anyway, but it can also represent, when you do stuff like that, it can represent time or something like that. It'd be kind of interesting to have a little child in here and, someone older or something like that. Or you can do like a, if you're working in kind of metaphors, in terms of, scenically, what you do is you do like a like a mother deer, you know what I mean, a young any kind of like mother, or adult child type of imagery into a different scenario like that, with these phases like that. And you can even have a quote up there, and it'd be kind of interesting. All right, so looking at this right here, I'm trying to figure out if anything else that I want. Okay, one of the things I forgot to do when I was, I was splattering all that paint in there was, which is no big deal, we'll just do it right now, but I want to add in some of that textural lightness that's up here and represents stars. I want it down here representing kind of the splashing waves and things like that. So this is a real soft application of white over dark, with the white over silver, okay? It's a soft application. This is your crisp application in the form of these little speckly, lights like that, okay? Splashes. Reflecting, splashing water. Okay. So it's a way to go back in and add in some crisp element in there. And it looks good too because it's white and it'll really stand out against something dark. All right, so we have these crashing waves right here and here. And I'm going really close here. Because it's not supposed to be just this general pattern of overall, texture. trying to find out where it's splattering. I'm going like this right here. I'm like a half an inch away and it's splattering up there. So I might need to angle this a little bit more. All right, I think that is it. I was kind of adding in a little, just a little bit at a time. Some of it splashed, in areas that I, wasn't aiming for, but see that it just adds that nice little dynamic. There's so much more motion in these areas with that little bit like that. And then, we can't really control that too much, as you can see. I don't know, maybe if you're doing that every day, maybe get a kind of a much better idea. Maybe the toothbrush isn't the most kind of whatever location detailed applicator, but you can go in and add in some more specific highlights with the, your paint pen. You had more craft items in my move than anything. Well, that means you had your most important things should be that way, Patty, Those paper boxes were heavy. Yeah. It's like you get enough of that paper in any box or something like that. It's like like shipping like books or something like that. It's so heavy. All right, so adding in some more kind of like, specific little splashes in here. The paint pen gives me a little bit, in this case, a little bit more of a larger little splash. Now I'm going over some pigmenting here, so I have to kind of scribble off occasionally because that paint, the Dr. Martens, it can go up in that little tiny tip of your, in this case, extra fine tip acrylic paint pen. This one's not going too bad. I think this pen right here is pretty new, so it's really flowing pretty well. But if it starts clogging, what you do is just give a little scribble and get it flowing again. Okay. For me here, as I'm doing this, the thing that is occurring to me is that this wave looks more realistic to me, I guess, having that kind of varied textural light on there. Okay, now as I go up here, it's getting darker up here, so I'm going to use a little bit less highlighting in that area. Sometimes I overdo it, which I always say to do, but but it's kind of for the purpose of kind of knowing how much you should add. So I'm going to add a little bit less right here than maybe I have been in the past with the with these little highlights going up this way. Okay. I'll concentrate it more on this lighter area. Okay, now see my finger was like touching some of that area down here, so I need to be careful about that. And let's add in a little bit of texture. This is really slippery down here, so going with like some small imagery. Kind of don't do this too fast. I do it fairly quickly, but when I'm first starting to do this, I kind of go very lightly like this. Because it's easier, to go like this, and I mean, I wouldn't drag that an inch, but just even if it's like a micro inch, like an eighth of an inch. You don't want to have that kind of draggy kind of thing on there. So, you know, thick, wet ink, very surface oriented with a non-porous, smooth surface like that. Just be a little bit careful. Okay, so I'm getting a little bit of extra texturing right in here. Maybe I should be using this one, you know, the stays on, but I guess since I'm going to be doing sealing this off anyway, the Brilliance ink is fine to use. All right, let's get these sea turtles going on here. Okay, let's see. I'm wondering, I'm going to do these ones in the, I think I'm going to do these in stays on. Oh, let's just go with the Brilliance. Like I said, I'm going to have to wait for this to dry anyway. Okay, let me see. Let me get a print here to get my bearings on where I want these to go. Let's go with these over here. Okay, that one I was really being careful not to press down like that and to skew it a little bit. Well, you do when you're doing this type of thing, if you haven't, like, you know, stamped on metallics before with like thick inks, you do a couple test prints, you know, before, you know, have a piece of scrap silver or something like that, and then you'll get the feel of it. Which I have to do if I haven't worked on these for a while. I mean, it's a good idea to just kind of stamp down like that. I mean, sometimes I don't bother, but then, you know, I might stamp it in, and it's like the image comes out like, instead of nice and crisp like that, okay, it looks, I'm gonna, you know, it might look like that a little bit more than kind of crisp because I've moved it a little bit, because there you have this thick ink built up on there, and when you're pressing down like that, and none of the ink is getting absorbed like it would be on cardstock or something like that, it's easy to kind of just skew it, you know, even like a tiny bit, which doesn't matter if it's like so much, if it's like a, you know, some kind of insignificant texture that's going to be just kind of blended in with the background. But if it's like your main kind of focal point in a scene, like a person or an animal or, you know, little ducks in the sky or something like that, just a, you know, a couple practice prints or something like that. Okay, so anyways, boy, that looks real stormy without that, without it in context. All right, so I have that like that. This is coming from above like that. It's a lot more magical looking, huh, with that sky and imagery like that up above. I'm looking at down here, so instead of just this blank area of blackness like that, it's, you know, you get those colors, and then you get the moonlight or the moon reflection kind of shining in there. There's a lot more blues and everything throughout those shadow areas, which it would be on a, you know, if we're stamping this on a, you know, white piece of paper or something like that. So this doesn't have to be, in this scenario right here, this doesn't have to be this mirrored kind of reflection area. You can do what we call a horizon card, where you just stamp this imagery or whatever you want down here, and it represents the horizontal surface of your landscape. And then, you know, it's not, this isn't reflecting down here, but you can stamp this in any type of paper you want, where it might be more defined, you know, we can have more shadows and everything like that down here, but this is a pretty dynamic way to go with the reflection. It's probably less work too, because you have all the colors and lighting and everything like that reflected down here, as opposed to having to define it with, you know, your inks. Black ink and everything like that, or whatever colors, you know, coloring, bringing all that color in, into that area. Okay, so let's see. Let me get a little bit of extra. Let me see. I was going to add in this little framing right here with my leaves, just because it happens to be right here. I do have this palm frond that would be really good in here, but let's just go with, we'll go with this right here again. My go-to kind of foreground left and right corner image. Maybe this would be better than leaves too, because these little leaves are roughly the same size as the turtles, baby sea turtles, so maybe it would kind of blend in optically too much by going with the same form, so these reeds are a lot different looking from a shape perspective. I guess this makes sense too. It's like a kind of that beach grass or something like that. And we'll give, you know, some of these little sea turtles a little bit of cover from predators as they make their way to the water. Where they run into a whole new set of, I don't know, predators, but anyway. In this scenario, though, they all make it. in our own world. All right, so see that right down there. And then phases like that. This would be kind of cool. I left a little area up here for like a word stamp or something of that sort. I don't think I have enough room for a quote stamp. I like that quote that, you know, it's like the journey of a lifetime or something like that begins in one step. That would be perfect up here in white pigment ink, because it would show up against that background. But I don't know if there's space for it. Okay, so everything on here has to dry before I kind of spray seal it and tack it down. So I'll do that later. But you can see the gist of the card. Like so. Oh, I know where that quote would be perfect though. It doesn't have to go inside here. It'd be on this part of the card. You stamp it up here, okay, in the closed portion, or whatever on the lid of the card or something like that, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, so I'm getting this like lighting right here on here. See, I can't block that off. All right, I need to block off this bottom portion. Anyway, fun kind of illuminations on here. This is a little bent right here, so you're not seeing like that. Okay, I can't touch this too much right here because this is all kind of fragile until I get it spray sealed, so we'll just leave it like this. But this is a little bit bowed, so it's not reflecting exactly, you know, what this will look like after I get it all kind of adhered into the card base here. So anyway, that's what we have. Moon phases. I haven't done that for a while. It's pretty fun on that background. I like having all these kind of static things over the top of that background though too, because that type of cardstock is super, you know, dynamic, but it's also kind of distracting for sure, you know, in the use of scenery. So when you add these kind of static types of things in there, especially with the stars in the background, a little bit of white pigment ink. Like I said, I find it very usable for scenes, and it, you know, it definitely contributes to the overall whatever excitement of the card. But you just you kind of have to tame it a little bit, you know, to be able to be used, where you can actually see the imagery in there. So, yeah. I do like those moons over the top of it now, too. People were saying in that previous one where it was on the golden cardstock, a lot of the comments, you know, I didn't really think about it when I was doing it in person, but a lot of people thought that really looks like it's standing out from that background. And I think they were saying that horse down below really looks like it's standing up in there. But I really hadn't thought about it. But when I look at the photograph of this moon in there, it does, really stand out from that super dynamic background like that. So I think that's a pretty good way to go. I think it's a pretty good way to go, adding in these types of things on top of that background like that. And the vinyl sticker papers are, the glow-in-the-dark sticker papers are a pretty fun way to go with that glow-in-the-dark aspect of them too. It doesn't have to be glow-in-the-dark, but you flip off the lights in this. Someone took a photograph of it too and posted it on Facebook. I didn't really do that, but she turned off the lights and had that glow-in-the-dark moon. See, here's the moons right here. But it looks really cool when you turn off the lights, even if it's not in a completely dark room. Those things glow pretty well. I don't think we can get it here with my studio lights on, but well, it's a little bit, different right there. But look at that, you turn off some of those lights on here, and it really gives a different spirit to it. So it's the ever-changing cards with the holographics, that's for sure. Let's see. Basil is still around. Okay, yeah, the Basil, yeah. They were so awesome in terms of those different offerings like that. God, that was such a that Basil might have been like the busiest booth at CHA for a few years in there. I don't know if they still go to that show. I don't know if anyone going to I don't think CHA is even around anymore. I think it's called something else. It turned into a different entity, but those trade shows were nuts with that Basil booth. There were so many salespeople there. I'm trying to remember, but I thought they just had tables and tables and tables of people taking orders or dropping off orders for that Basil, because it's like it seemed like I don't know, they must have had been in 90% of all the scrapbooking stores. I don't know about stamping stores, maybe not so much stamp specific ones, but the scrapbooking stamping stores, man, it was like Basil. It was a Basil universe, that's for sure. Oh, pattern papers, cool. Yeah, this came together pretty fun here. I'm glad it did. Like I said, I wasn't quite sure on the sequencing and everything like that. It was just a couple of different elements in here. And basically what I was thinking about was working on this card in these two different areas where sometimes I don't do all that white pigment ink work in this area down here, but it really needed it with that reflection up here, kind of reflecting down here, and just with, I don't know, just the configuration of these stamps going onto this scene right here. But I knew I was going to be like dealing with like wet inks through the entire thing, so I only had to kind of patch up a couple areas a couple different times where I put my hand in it, wet ink in there. But I'll give this overnight to dry. Sometimes when I really build up that ink on there, and like if I just re-ink, especially like a black Brilliance pad, and if it's stamping it over another Brilliance ink, white or something like that, sometimes it can be tacky for a while. So on this one right here too, I think when I spray this off, I think I'll be like taking a piece of paper like this, and I'll just kind of cover that up a little bit. And I'll spray from up here so that all that spray is going onto this area right here, because I think I'll have to go, do like a few passes with my spray sealant to lock that ink down on there. And I don't want to get too much overspray in this area. Inevitably it does, because, they're all little molecules going around everywhere, and I'm not going to cut out a mask for this and spray seal that, okay? I don't mind if some of that sealant goes into this area, but I don't want it like too thick, because you start to lose some of that, the quality of the just straight holographic cardstock like that. It starts getting a little bit frosted, but not as much as the thicker acrylic sprays. So I'm talking about, if you just joined in, it's the workable fixatives. Krylon calls it spray fixative with an F at the end of that, tiff right there. But it's a thinner spray and it just dries a little bit faster. So it's pretty, it's a good one to use on something like this. It's designed to really dry very quickly so that you can keep working on something, mostly dry media like graphites, chalks, and charcoals, stuff like that. But I find it works really well on these types of metallic papers where you don't want that sealant to influence the card as much as a thicker spray would. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, fun stuff. So I forgot who did that. Someone redid that card. They did a really fantastic job on. They posted it to Facebook. That horse one there that I was just showing. So I think that was her. I don't know. Can't remember if that was her first time doing it or something. I can't remember what she said, but she did a fantastic job on that pigment ink wave type of thing. So. Just if anyone does that, just do it with kind of a drier cotton ball, application, or cotton ball and a Q-tip type of application, cotton swab, if Q-tip isn't a brand in your areas, countries. But yeah, just dry brush it in there and build it up nice and gradually, okay? And it's easy to do. And I wasn't quite sure how easy it was either because I hadn't done that for a while. But recently it was like, oh, okay, this isn't any kind of problem at all. It blends in pretty well because you would think that putting like white pigment ink on top of like, gold or silver cardstock would really stand out kind of, you know what I mean? Not not gracefully. It would stand out too much. But if you just add it in nice lightly, it works great and applies easily. How about turning the lights out so we can see the glow? Do you want to see it without? I'm not sure if you'll. Well, okay, so you'll be able to see the glow, but we won't be able to see the scene at all if I flip off this light here. Oh, I still have here. I still have my whatever light on me here. Let me go like that. Wait, what the heck is going on? Why isn't my light turning off here? Oh, here we go. Oh, yeah, there you go. My camera's like out of focus right now too, because there's not enough light on there. But there you go. There you have it. And yeah. Fun stuff. Another thing I was mentioning before, if you have a glow-in-the-dark paint pen or something like that, you can hit some additional stars up here with that. That might be reflected. I don't know if my glow-in-the-dark... This is glow-in-the-dark acrylic paint. I could splatter that up there too. I don't know if that'll glow very well because these are like tiny little specks, and I find that this paint here... it shows up much better, naturally with the more that you use. So sometimes these tiny little specks of light, they don't retain enough light, I don't think. Now, if I used it with a black light, it would be fine. But if you go for light retention on like a, I don't know, whatever, like a 50th of a millimeter application, it just doesn't hold enough. It just doesn't retain enough light for any kind of reflective or glow-in-the-dark type of quality. You might be able to get it for like a tenth of a second or something like that. But I don't know if it would work. But like I said, if you're displaying a bunch of cards under like some kind of black light, that would be pretty cool. I'm sure it would glow really well. Yeah, so Patty, yeah, the different colors down here too. And then plus, I like it when, you're kind of rolling this like this, and it's like the waves, You have those light coming through the, those different waves or the water pattern like that. You know how light kind of, rolls up that way? So you get that same type of thing. And remember, with this one right here, we have a choice. You know, I can go with like the vertical patterning. It would look more like Northern Lights or something like that. But since I was using waves down here, I decided to use this one horizontally, you know. So here's your horizontal aspect, and there's the kind of more Northern Lighty type of vertical light pillory type of thing. So I don't know, it's like really fun. You can kind of, you know, play around with these types of things and change things around and get different types of configurations. This would be really cool to add in like moons and, you know, in front of like some background Northern Lights or something like that. You might not see that, you know, the ideal Northern Lights, it's not going to have like this full moon that's kind of like, you know, washing out all of the light, but, you know, in terms of that's what we can do in stamping. You can have like a big old bright moonlight, you know, up there and still see a bunch of stars and, you know, the Northern Lights all in the same type of thing. So, yeah, difference between like stamping and like photography or something like that. Let's see. Get the thumbs. Yeah, thanks, Patty. Anyway, all right, folks. That is it for this piece, except for a little bit of like I said, spray sealing and spray adhesive. It should be said that on this large type of thing, I mean, you can use, you know, your tape rollers or something like that, but I like using the spray adhesives too, and that'll give a really flat application to these larger pieces like that. Sometimes I've tacked down, I've mentioned in the past. Now these two pieces of cardstock are really stiff, but sometimes I've tacked, you know, these types of things down onto a piece of, you know, my card base. And like, I don't know, like over a year or something like that, sometimes it seems like it's a little bit wobbly in there where, I don't know, through expansion and contraction or something like that, you get a metallic and just regular paper. I usually don't use my card base isn't like a metallic piece, so sometimes it seems like it's like floppy in there. So I'd like to go for a nice smooth, you know, kind of a completely uniform application of adhesion in the back, and that's why where those spray adhesives come in handy for these larger pieces too. So, and then you can use the spray adhesive on things like your vellum and things like that too. So get that on like see if we can get that spray adhesive like a 3M Super 77 or something like that. See if we can get it for 75% off today. Black Friday sale. I doubt it, but you never know. All right. Thanks for checking out the scene. Thanks for joining Stampscapes Live, and hope to see you all in the next live stream here. Maybe we'll try to jump on over the weekend or something like that. And I don't know. I really want to get some of these more moony, you know, figures or something like that over. Like I said, now I'm thinking about that Northern Light type of thing, and going vertical with this. I think that would be really cool. Maybe I'll use the larger moon again, and use, you know, there's a lot of different colors of this type of holographic now too, so a lot of different colors that I haven't used yet. Anyway, all right folks, thanks again, and have a great rest of your evening.